Let me read to you a passage from the 13th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 24 to 30. It's the Gospel for Saturday of the 16th week in Ordinary Time, Year 2. St. Matthew writes, Jesus told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed ears, then the weeds also appeared. The owner's servants came to him and said, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from? An enemy did this, he replied. The servants asked him, Do you want us to go and pull them up? No, he answered, because while you are pulling the weeds, you may root up the wheat with them. Let them both grow together until the harvest. At that time I will tell the harvesters, First collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned. Then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn. That's from Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 to 30. And what does it suggest to us? Well, I am convinced that one of the most universal of problems is that of bitter memories. As people grow older, difficult and hurtful memories can crowd their minds. If they do not learn to control those memories and cast a new and higher light on them, their lives will be blighted with suffering. Wise counselling can be of immense help, but each person must take his own case in hand and strive to look on things in a higher way, and this must include his painful memories. Those who caused the injuries that are being remembered will gradually die off, and still the painful memories can remain unresolved. It is an aspect of the problem of evil as felt by the individual. There is no simple answer to this, and yet those memories have to be controlled and healed. But a few great facts ought be kept in mind by the one thus suffering. Firstly, the ultimate cause of suffering is sin, either sin within oneself or sin outside of oneself. As St. Paul writes in the letter to the Romans, sin entered the world through one man, and through sin death, and death has spread to the whole human race. So, death and all that leads to death is ultimately due to the sin of man. Christ suffered incomparably, and his sufferings were due entirely to the sin of the world outside himself. He was absolutely sinless, and yet he suffered more than any other. The case is different with us. We cause suffering to others, and they cause suffering to us. But whatever is or has been the suffering, whether caused by us, or by others, or by a combination of both, which is usually the case, the ultimate cause is sin. Let us take an image of this, the weeds, in our Lord's parable today. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed ears, then the weeds also appeared. Our experience of life and the world is of the wheat growing side by side with the weeds. There is a tradition in Christian thought that judges man to be wholly and entirely corrupted and sunk in sin. If by this is meant that there is no good in man and no good in the world, I deny that this is revealed doctrine. Man is not totally corrupted. Rather, man is profoundly wounded by sin, to the point where by nature he is subject to ignorance, to suffering, and to the dominion of death, and is inclined to sin. there are both weeds and wheat in his life and in the world. Due to the work of Christ, grace now abounds the more. Nevertheless, sin is like the weeds. It is everywhere among the wheat, which represents the good. Sin is the common malady. So when a person's life is deeply affected by the painful memories of past hurts, let him remember that the sin which all have inherited from our first parents is present in his life and also in the lives of those who have hurt him. Due to this common malady, we have been hurt by others, and others by us. Indeed, more often than not, the hurts from which one suffers are due to both others and oneself. I think this thought of the common malady of sin can help those who suffer be less unforgiving and more mellow. There are weeds everywhere, and as the master of the field in the parable says, an enemy has done this. That enemy has gained a foothold in every man and woman, and the result is unhappiness and suffering for all. So let us strive to be forgiving, bearing in mind our common malady, due to which we all suffer from the hurts and injuries we inflict on one another to a greater or lesser extent. There is this further fact that is more important than all. In the parable, the field which has both wheat and weeds has at the same time a master, an owner. He is the one in whom we trust. He will guide our path to its proper end. His love is active in his providence, and we ought not only recall the harsh elements, the bad and difficult and hurtful elements in our life, but also the good things which God has done, the providence that has been at work and which will take us to our end. All this is to say that we ought to remember the fact that while sin has passed to the whole human race, because one man sinned, at the same time God is at work bringing us to our good. There is wheat in the field, but many weeds as well. An enemy has done this, as the owner of the field in the parable says. St. Paul wrote that God brings together all things for the good, for the sake of those who love him. We can trust in him, and looking back on life we can see his providence at work. That is a sign of the much better things which in the fullness of time God will bring us to. Let us then be forgiving and trust constantly in God.